Welcome everyone to day 4. It's our last day of chapter leaders training. Who's excited? Woohoo! I am. We've got a great day lined up for all of you. We're going to talk about advocacy, meetings, outreach efforts, and then we're going to end up with chapter websites today. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Andrea, and we'll get things started with advocacy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you, Ashley. Tammy, are you pulling up the slides? I love all the excitement. Oh, now I hear an echo. You all hear an echo as well? Echo gone?
Is it better?
I don't hear an echo anymore. Does anyone else?
You are good, Andrea.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. I love all the excitement, though. Before speaking, I always try and get in kind of a calm mode. So the music was the exact opposite of where my head was, but it was still a lot of fun. So welcome, as Ashley said. My name is Andrea Ills, and I'm the Director of Government and Public Affairs for APWA and head up our Washington, D.C. office. Tammy, do I get to control the slides now and click them?
You should. Can you do it?
Okay. No, they are not moving for me.
There you go. I think you did it.
Oh, excellent. Maybe my computer is just a little slow today, trying to be zen.
Got it.
So today, while I have a little bit of your time and appreciate it, a couple of things that I'm going to go over. First of all, I'd like to tell you about the Government Affairs Program, the what, the why, the who, and just fill you in a little bit about some of the great tools and resources that we have available for your use as individuals and as chapters, and then also talk about advocacy at the chapter level. And I would also love to hear from you and what's happening in your chapters. So get ready, hopefully, for a really good discussion. Not moving for me. Tammy, the slides aren't moving at all. Thank you. So what is the purpose of government affairs? I get asked this question a lot. I don't get offended by it because I understand. A lot of people think, oh, you want me to go and talk to politicians and tell them what I do, or you want me to go and talk to media and tell them what I do as public works officials. But I always flip it around and say, think of it as an education process. As the experts, you as the public works professionals can be that expert resource to lawmakers. Believe it or not, they have very limited exposure and they're expected to know something about everything. And oftentimes they come from their own career background and expertise, but it is not public works much of the time. So we need to use you as our experts and resource and have you also engage with your elected officials, regulators at every level. APWA advocates primarily at the federal level. However, the local and state levels and the chapters creating those engagements and interacting is super important. If we take the time to inform lawmakers, regulators about what laws they make, regulations they put into place, what the real world impact is on public works, and we get them to think about that with information, again, the real world experience, we can have a very positive impact and make your work easier, better, more efficient, and effective in your communities. And think about it. If not APWA, speaking on behalf of 30,000 members, and you as our 30,000 members, then who's best to do it? We also are here in the Government Affairs Program to support your efforts at your chapter level. We want to be a resource to you, and today I'm going to cover some of those resources. And then, of course, the communities where you live depend on strong advocates, and who knows those committees best other than you? You are the experts, you are the neighbors, the friends, the soccer coaches, wherever you are in your life communicating. People will ask, oh, what do you do for a living? I'm a wastewater manager. Oh, that's very interesting. I mean, that's an opportunity to take some time and educate about public works and also about APWA. Tammy, can you move the slide, please? And of course, as we've talked over the past couple of weeks, being the voice of public works to government leaders, the public, the media is a strategic goal for the association and has been for quite some time. We are all in this together. Next slide, please. So who makes up the APWA US Government Affairs team? Myself as director, and I primarily focus on transportation related issues, though of course my team keeps me apprised of what I need to know in our other areas. Marty Williams, Government Affairs Manager, who handles primarily emergency management, and unfortunately Marty is not able to join us today due to a government affairs meeting taking place at the same time. Sean Garcia, Government Affairs Manager, focuses on water resiliency and public right-of-way. Sean, due to another government affairs meeting conflict, was not able to join as well today, but sends his regards. Michael Altman, Government Affairs Associate, focuses on workforce development issues and also is staff liaison to the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. Again, Michael had another commitment today and was unable to be here. And then Charles Rena, our Public Affairs Manager, he handles media interaction and our public visibility. Charlie is here today and you'll be hearing from him in a little bit, so I'll let you wait to hear from him about more specific information on our media activities. Next slide, please. And of course, we're very fortunate also today to have the Government Affairs Committee Chair, Mike Millett, and I'm going to ask Mike to share his perspective as the GAC Chair and APWA member very involved in advocacy. So Mike, take it away, please.
Great. Thank you, Andrea. Can everybody hear me okay? Thumbs up. Good. All right.
I hear you.
Thanks, everybody. As Andrea said, I'm the current chair of the Government Affairs Committee. I have been on the committee for 3 years now. Prior to that, I was in a distant life past, I was the Government Affairs Committee Chair for Chicago Metro Chapter. And in that role, actually thinking back about 10 years ago, I was where many of you folks are sitting actually back then in KC for this same training. As I was ascending the ladder in the Metro leadership role. And the one thing I wanted to make sure that we impress upon you folks right now is kind of following along what Andrea said. We are educators, we are advocates. We do this already. If you hear nothing from me, please take this back. You are an advocate for something already. Many of us work for municipal governments, state governments, local governments, as do I. I have a time where I have to advocate for my staff when it's budget process with the village administrator. I have times where I have to advocate for policies with our village board to explain to them why we should do this way, the snowplow, et cetera, et cetera. I'm already doing those sorts of things. If you work if you're in the private sector, if you are a engineer that works with governments, you sell your company, you sell your process to a government agency when you respond to an RFP. You are advocating for your company. If you're on the equipment side of things, you advocate for your product. So what we're talking about as part of government affairs is basically doing the same thing, but at a different level. Andrea used a very good hook there when talked about at the soccer match or in the grocery store or any of those sort of things. Where you see legislators is up to you. We have times where we go see them on Capitol Hill. That's nice. It's impressive. It's effective. Their staffs are there. It's very good to get in contact with the staffs of the various legislators and the committee's staffs. But also, especially for Congress people, they go back to their districts very frequently and they have town halls or they have meet and greets. They will have events with Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, whatever the case may be. You go to those events, you meet them, you say, hi, I'm so-and-so, I work for the Department of blank. Just wanted to let you know if you have a question about wastewater, if you have a question about the transportation, if you have a question about anything related to public works, have your staff, feel free to give me a call and make those connections because it's really about that. It's really about connecting with people, like in any advocacy effort and any relationship effort you have in your life, about making a one-to-one connection with somebody, and then being sincere and honest about that. And when they call, answer their questions. And if you can't, don't make something up, right? Say, you know what, I've got this great resource at our national office. I've got Marty Williams I can reach out to. I will have him get in touch with your staff and answer that question for you. That's what we're talking about. We're really looking at the resource effort, so that when a question comes up, and this has been happening I should say more frequently in the last 5 years than in my entire 30 odd years professionally, where we're seeing APWA folks testify on Capitol Hill. That's a very visible thing, where you see Executive Director Grayson, or you see President Irish in front of a quote unquote camera in this virtual setting, where a committee person from whatever staff person or whatever says, what's APWA's position on that? And Audrey will go into that a little bit on the ones we have forum positions. But again, the ability to be the first person they think of, the first organization they think of, or at least, and this is something else I'm focusing on with the committee this year, or at least in concert with like-minded advocacy groups, or other organizations, ASCE, ASHTO, IATE, those sort of things, where we could speak together as a more collective voice, amplifying our positions to Congress. Because Andrea said it very succinctly, these people can't operate in a vacuum. If they operate in a vacuum, then anything that gets sucked into the intake, it may be what comes out as policy in the end. So our role is to be the voice of honesty, the voice of reason, the voice of expertise. And it's not that hard to do. You do this every day in your life already. We have tools, and Andrea will go over those shortly, that make it almost the press of a button to respond to certain calls we have for congressional action. And even beyond that, the last thing I'll say, and then turn it back to Andrea, is I mentioned partnership with other agencies or other organizations. Thinking back to what we've done on the state level here in Illinois, where we hadn't had a road bill for years. I reached out to, again at that time, a friend I knew that from ASCE, and we decided we're going to do a Springfield event together. So it was APWA, ASCE, or hosting the legislature for a lunch, simple thing. And that still goes on to this day, because we went together and put that down onto the micro level. You don't have to advocate by yourself. If this is something you're not 100% comfortable with, but you think you'd like to try, go with a friend, go with a colleague, go with someone from our staff if it's something that you think you have expertise on, and we need somebody to go with Sean to talk to somebody. Volunteer to do that. I think that's all I got to cover for right now, Andrea.
Great. Thank you, Mike. Great examples as well, and sharing how easy it is and how local truly advocacy is, whether you're talking to a city council member or you're talking to a US senator. It's all about just sharing what you do and the real story of public works. Next slide, please, Tammy. Are you able? Thank you. So, Mike mentioned our public policy priorities. These are adopted every 2 years. The Government Affairs Committee and the APWA Government Affairs staff, we go through our policy priorities. We hear from members. We hear from the technical committees. We see what's happening on the political landscape in Congress. And we try and work very diligently to come up with policy priorities that best represent you to Congress. The primary areas for quite some time that we've been advocating on are related to transportation, water, and emergency management. This cycle, for the first time, we have new statements that we're calling policymaker primers. These are not policy statements in the same lane as the others, meaning not specific policy support, language, regulatory suggestions and solutions. But the primers really are focused on issues that we hear when we're talking to congressional members and staff, such as public right-of-way, such as recycling, for instance, such as who makes up the public works workforce. We have learned over the years that Congress really doesn't have quite a full and in-depth understanding of who public works is and what it represents. So the primers are really a supplement to our public policy priorities, designed intentionally to speak to an issue and share the public works impact and the public works role in these issues. Currently, the Government Affairs Committee has worked on 2 primers, which should be ready for public consumption shortly, one on the public works workforce and one on the public right-of-way 5G. Once the Government Affairs Committee and the staff go over the policy positions, rewrite them, review them based on successes we've had over the past couple of years or things that we want to see happen in the new Congress, the policies are presented to the board, who reviews and approves, if all goes well and according to plan. So as you can see listed there, surface transportation reauthorization, water resiliency, and emergency management are our priorities for this Congress, the 117th. Next slide, please. So we are here to help you, and we have lots of resources, and that's really what I want you to walk away with today, that just like we've been talking about over the past couple of weeks, APWA staff and the resources that we have, and the APWA leadership, the Government Affairs Committee, we are all here to help you with your chapter's advocacy goals and be that voice for public works at the national level. We have many different products from which you can utilize, and they are specifically written to be used at the local, state, and federal levels. We have public works research products, the priority statements we already talked about, the legislative action alerts, which literally the click of a button can take you 2 minutes to respond, a pre-written email on an issue or a bill that Congress is currently considering that we need you to speak up on. We have the Tell Your Story portal, where you can go and see your colleagues and peers' stories of things going on in their communities, share your story to give them advice and information. And we also share that information with members of Congress to be able to walk into a Massachusetts office and have a story from a public works director in the state of Massachusetts, an operator, et cetera, has such an impact, and it's very, very important. Of course, we have the Washington Report, which comes out every Monday that Congress is in session. Advocacy News on the website. Follow us on Twitter at @APWA-GovAffairs. We have the House Public Works and Infrastructure Caucus, which we work with on legislation, hosting briefings to the Hill, and those types of activities. It has to be reestablished every Congress, so every 2 years. We have gotten the official sign-off that the caucus is being reestablished by our 2 co-chairs, Dina Titus from Nevada and Brian Fitzpatrick from Pennsylvania. It is a bipartisan effort, and we're hosting our first brief sponsored by the caucus next Friday, February 12th, virtual brief, of course, and I'll share that information with you later as well. And then when you go through the reporter, we have the standing monthly columns, the Washington Insight, GAC Insight, and Media Insight. Next slide, please. This is just to show you what our current overview policy document looks like, public policy priorities for the 117th Congress. These are quick snapshots of each policy area, but then we also have standalone policy documents at which you can take. They're PDF format. You can quickly and easily print them, drop them off by a district office, send them virtually, of course, now in this current environment, but they are there for you to use as well. Next slide, please. And quick snapshots of some of the other tools I've mentioned. The Washington Report, Tell Your Story down there, the bottom center, where you can go and click and check out stories. To the right, the Legislative Action Center, up there now, check it out. We have 2 current action alerts. So if you haven't had a chance to respond to those, please go to apwa.net and do so. and then APWA tweets and APWA Gov Affairs. Next slide, please. And then these are snapshots of some of our current public works research. Again, these are products that are in PDF format that you can download and share or send electronically. Every state, I'm showing Missouri here, but we have a product, an infrastructure project size page for every state in the United States. The center document is what is public works. This has been a very successful product for us because it so succinctly shares what are the types of functions that public works covers. What are the costs for these types of functions? We've gotten a lot of positive feedback on that product, and you can use that again at your level with the chapters and local and state outreach too. And then the other on the right-hand side, as you're looking at the screen, is from our presidentially declared disasters. That shows, that goes through June of 2020, so it's pretty recent, though we're in the process right now of updating the statistics of every state in the past 5 years has had a presidentially declared disaster. That is a very impactful picture, and it's that type of information, data, specific stories that have the most success when we're advocating to Congress. Next slide, please. And these are just some fun snapshots, both pre-pandemic and during pandemic, of some of our advocacy and action. Board members in the top left, as you're looking at the screen, at the White House last year in March, just before we went all virtual for APWA staff. In the top center, board member Sean Ahmad, APWA President Mary Joyce Ivers, and Governor Bill Lee of Tennessee at an infrastructure roundtable event back in California last January. Top right with caucus, GAC members, and also some technical committee members meeting on Capitol Hill. And then as you continue down the screen, the bottom right, Congressman Fitzpatrick, our caucus co-chair, addressing one of our virtual briefs. Center, a transportation brief that we held last year on the Hill, just before everyone went mostly virtual for APWA staff. And then the bottom left, Congresswoman Dita Titus, our other caucus co-chair, who is addressing a virtual brief there to Congress, which we held last year. Next slide, please. So how is your chapter advocating? I would love to just take a few minutes right now if anybody would like to put comments in the chat, different activities you're doing, if you have a government affairs committee, those types of things. Anyone wanting to share and go off mute for a moment? Come on, don't be shy. I know there's lots of great advocacy functions happening out there across the country.
Anyone on from Minnesota?
Yes, Scott's alluding to the Minnesota chapter began a series of infrastructure talks for the month of February every Thursday morning at 7:45 a.m. Central Time, where they're engaging with state and local elected officials on infrastructure, and Scott spoke this morning. I see here in the chat, Arizona has a very active GAC committee. That is the truth, Al. Excellent. I have both pre-pandemic traveled to Arizona and while we've been in the pandemic, had the privilege to be invited to speak to the chapter. Super active. They hold monthly lunch and learns and do a really terrific job in engaging with their elected officials at every level, whether it be the US Senate on down. They do a terrific job. See, Jen Hughes mentions the Chicago Metro chapter has an annual visit to the state capitol. Excellent activity, Jen. Thank you for sharing. I know the California chapter does that as well, where they do a day to Sacramento. Much of that, of course, right now is virtual, but in many ways, virtual can be more effective. So don't discount it when you're thinking about chapter advocacy activities. Legislators have found, and I've heard from congressional staff specifically, that a lot of them are actually preferring this environment and may keep it once we get past the pandemic. Or do a hybrid function, because they have constituents that don't travel all across the country to come meet with them in DC and then have the meeting delayed or canceled due to an unexpected vote. Also, oftentimes the member of Congress can stick to their schedules a little better in a virtual environment and staff can hang on a little bit longer. So do that outreach even during the pandemic. Take the time, connect with the district staff, pick up the phone, shoot an email, tell them you're a local resource and you want to help, and tell them about Public Works. Janine, I see you would like to speak.
Yeah,
Please
sure.
share.
Thanks, Andrea. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, thank you.
I'm Janine Clancy. I'm the chapter delegate for the Minnesota chapter, and I'm also on the Water Resources Committee. And one of our past presidents, Kristen Asher, and our Government Affairs Committee has designed this infrastructure chat program that Scott was talked about a little bit, and Andrea, you mentioned. And one of the things that I really like about it as a public works professional is that you can see there's a number of speakers, and so no one person needs to feel like they need to lift the whole conversation. So we had a whole bunch of people there. Each week we're going to have a different topic, and it just makes it a lot easier when you know, like for example, I have 5 talking points I have to make. I don't have to make 25 talking points, just 5. And I think that's really a great way to handle it. So I'm excited about this. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you for sharing, Janine. And I attended this morning's Minnesota discussion on infrastructure, and it was fantastic. When you're having these events, don't be shy about inviting me or a member of my team, because we learn in these, even if you don't need us to speak or do anything but listen. We learn so much information about your day-to-day work, and it's so helpful to our efforts. I'm seeing really terrific comments here, and I only see my face on the screen at the moment, but I hear like maybe somebody's wanting to speak.
Oh, Andrea, one comment on what happened this morning in the Minnesota chapter. Each of the panelists are experts in their own area. And what we always speak about is that people don't even realize how expert they actually are. You just speak about what's happening in your own city, road miles, what's happening underneath your streets, how you're constructing it. And that's really important stuff that state legislators want to hear about.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you, Scott. Excellent points. Again, I see lots of good examples. Legislative days going virtual in May in California, action alerts in Pennsylvania, visit with governor's office in Iowa. I want to point to one in particular that Tara posted here from the Washington chapter. The Washington chapter is super engaged. I've had, again, the privilege to visit with them both virtually and in person. And Tara's commenting, they sent a letter to the Washington state government recommending that public works professionals be included in an early round of vaccinations. We have been doing a lot of work on that front and getting a lot of inquiries from members. And just to clarify for you, that the CDC did put in its recommendations that public works be included as a priority group in one of the early phases. But the distribution and prioritization takes place at the state level. So it's super important to do like the Washington chapter is doing and contact your governor's office or state departments of health, whomever it is that is in charge of that, and share with them the specific jobs that are public works jobs that have a higher risk of exposure to COVID-19, and or if those workers were not able to go to work because they're sick with the virus, what happens to those services? So thank you for sharing that, Tara. Excellent example.
You're welcome. I should add, though, that we did not get included in the stage that we were hoping to be included in. So
okay,
fingers
well,
crossed
don't give
for the
up.
next stages.
Yes, don't give up, and please let us know how that goes.
You bet.
Thank you. I believe all the chat information and great ideas being shared here will be saved. And of course, the session will be recorded, but reach out anytime. I do want to make a couple final points before handing it over to our next subject for today. A lot of chapters are aligning with the APWA strategic plan. I know the Georgia chapter and several others that have aligned, and they find that as a good roadmap and a guide, you know, the voice, the value, the education and the credentialing, the membership focus. If that works and you think that helps give you direction and a roadmap for your advocacy efforts and other APWA chapter efforts, please do so. Again, here to help, want to give you all the resources and tools we can. It's also super important when you get involved at the chapter level in advocacy to have a particular focus. Identify what your goal or goals are. Don't try and take on the entire world at one time. That's impossible. I always suggest take one or two really important efforts or have some strong messaging around it. Like we talked about Minnesota, they have the Minnesota 2050 Raise Our Grade, which their infrastructure discussions are based on. That's a very specific focus message that they can come together on, find partners around the state to work on, and successfully advocate to every level and to educate the public, policymakers, regulators, etc. So don't overwhelm yourself or your chapter with too many goals. Pick one or two projects to really go full bore on and have fun with it. Get out there and share your expertise and come up with some really cool and innovative pandemic events. And then when we're out of this, we can get back to doing more fun things in person. Next slide, please. Okay, the slide we jumped over was shown already. That was from the Minnesota events this morning, but I just had to include some pictures of that because I thought it was just such a cool event. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned earlier, we're having our first virtual brief for this year, our brief to Congress next Friday, February 12 at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. CEO Grayson will be our moderator. APWA President Mary Joyce Ivers will be participating as well. GAC Chair Mike Millett, whom you heard from earlier, will be speaking. So will Joe Jaron, who's a member of our Big City County Forum with New York City. And then we have Allison Abel from Parkville, Missouri, who will be speaking on behalf of small cities and rural communities, as she is the chair for that group. As it says there, you need to RSVP to Michael Altman. His email is there on the screen in order to receive the participation link, but please join us. We'd love to have you as we talk to Congress about public works and infrastructure in the 117th Congress. Next slide, please. And I thank you again for your time. And if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. Reach out to me anytime. And I really appreciate your listening today and all of your time, commitment, and efforts back in your communities. Thanks so much. And next, we're to move on to events, and you're going to hear from Scott Grayson as Diana is unable to be with us today, our Director of Meetings and Events. So Scott, take it away.
Thank you. So let's see, can I share yet? Oh, perfect. I'm all ready. So how many of you have been on Zoom all morning and all afternoon? Why don't you stand up, stretch, and unmute and go, woo? I would have done that if we were in person. I heard one woo. I heard a couple of woo. I'm liking it. All right. It's a good way to start when we speak about meetings and events. Everyone sees my slides? Good. Okay. I saw thumbs up. So I am not Diana. She is way more expert at this than I am. But we also have Brenda Shaver, who's monitoring your questions as well. But let me get started. I should say that in fact, I have a background in meeting planning as well. But our group here does it better than anywhere I've ever seen. So let's get started. So we want to hear a little bit from you. These Zoom meetings can be really long if you're not able to speak and add stuff as well. So unmute and speak up. So first question, why are there contracts? Anyone want to speak about that? There's 160, let's see, 5 people on. It's got to be one of them. Insurance. Okay, I heard that. What else?
Risk.
Okay. Anything else?
Who's doing
Performance
what?
expectations.
Oh, thank you.
Performance expectations, great. Others?
Compensation.
What was that?
Agreement.
Compensation for the services
Thank
used.
you. Yep. Compensation.
Guardrails.
Okay, great.
Keeps you in line.
Yep. Very good. Okay. So the next question is, should you negotiate them? You get one from the groups you're working with and they say, here it is, sign. What would be your response?
Wait a minute.
Anyone?
I'll take a look.
Take a
Talk
look.
National.
Okay, I like that.
Not a chance.
Yeah. Okay. Send a national first. Okay. When you read an event contract, whether it's lodging, meeting spaces, food and beverage, what are some of the first things you look for?
Conditions.
Okay. Can you expand on what that means?
What I have to do and what they're going to provide given certain circumstances, such as a pandemic.
Like that
Cancellation.
one. Cancellation. Such as
Guaranteed.
a pandemic, yeah. They
Guaranteed.
write those in a lot, but nobody ever expected that. What else?
Guaranteed numbers.
Good. Okay, excellent. And how has a PWA helped you in the past? I didn't put it in writing, but I'll also ask you, or how have we hindered your progress? Speak freely. We want feedback.
So you guys helped us when we had to get a contract for an online service to do our virtual conference. This is in Illinois.
Thank you. Others?
It's always good to have a second set of eyes to look at it from a different perspective.
Okay. And any hindrances? Have we responded too slowly? Not at all? Impeded your progress? Oh, you can share if it's true. If it's not, great. Well, I'll move on quickly so I don't hear anything negative. Okay, it was already stated, do you need to let a PWA know when you are having an event? And the answer I heard was yes. We'll speak more about that. All right, before we really get started, we want to have a little more fun. And while we have a captured audience, this is a market study, a free market study and research. Can we go to the poll? Okay. Were we putting all three of them on once or no? How many PWX home events have you attended so far? Tammy, there's two other ones being asked as well, right?
Yes, I think there are. And when I tested it, they were showing up, like when you answered one, it would go to the next, go to the next. Is it doing that for the attendees?
Let me try it. No.
It's not for me.
No. Well, I'll tell you what.
There's no zero on it.
What we're after here is finding out, if the vaccinations are out there and everyone is eligible to have them, would you be willing to be at PWX in St. Louis at the end of August? Oh, here they are.
Let's try that one.
All right, I like that one even more.
Yeah.
Okay, answer those. It's easier. And you can scroll up if you don't see all three. And then we'll give you a minute, and then we'll bring back what the responses were so that everyone's able to look at that. Okay, let's bring it back. And show us the
They're
results.
still voting a little bit. Okay.
Oh, they are, okay.
There were
That's fine.
a couple still moving here,
Okay.
but we'll give them a couple more seconds.
It won't let me submit.
Yeah, it's not perfect. It's
It won't let me submit.
There was
Okay.
a third question on the bottom if you didn't scroll down.
All right, here we go. So assuming it is safe, 50% answer yes, 40% unsure right now, which is really understandable. There's lots of unknowns. What factors will go into making your decision? If my agency has the budget, what was the winner there? Next in line was travel restrictions, which is probably related. This is good feedback for us as we move ahead. As far as PWX, as we speak right now, we are planning on moving ahead and having it in person, but we constantly watch what's happening out there. Okay, thanks. All right, let's move on here. So chapter event contract template. We've actually created one that we use with all of our national meetings, and we've now made it available online for all of you, so that you can start at that point. Some of the most important elements, they've always been important, but I think all of us have realized even more so now, the force majeure, cancellation, impossibility. Force majeure, as a lot of you know, speaks about if the meeting site had a fire, if there's a flood, if there's a hurricane, earthquake, tornado, acts of God that would prevent you from holding your meeting there. And generally that language will let you out of it without paying any penalties. Cancellation often is a very long page of language about what you're on the hook for. So you want to really read that one and see worst case if you canceled outright. And now we're even speaking pre-COVID. What would that look like? What's worst case scenario? Often pre-COVID, it might have been an issue that you might not have had as many people as you expected. So you wouldn't have to outright cancel. Impossibility, not every contract has that. What that means is that based on what's happening, and we will speak about COVID, that the meeting site or sleeping rooms cannot meet your needs based on what's happening. So there are certain meeting sites right now that based on state or local law might be able to only have 700 people there, but you were planning on having 8,000 of them. You could have good language and cause there to say it's impossible for us to hold a meeting. We use this when we had to cancel PWX last year in New Orleans. They were using our meeting space as an overflow hospital. So you're going to want to try using our template as a starting point. A lot of hotels out there are okay with it. We've had our lawyers write it. It's pretty standard stuff. They may mark it up and then you read it and say, yeah, okay, I'm able to live with that or not. And we often have 5 to 6 or 8 iterations back and forth so that we make sure we're getting the most out of it. So the document which I have online will allow you to put comments in and show variety of options. And nothing, whether they've written it or we've written it, is written in stone. You want to make sure that you're comfortable before you sign it. So what we have online is really our starting point when we hold our PWX and Snow conference. And any questions so far? If I put the chat up, if I have my chat up, is that also sharing right now? It's not. Good. I was at another meeting. Okay. All right, good. Let's move on then. So this is what that actually looks like. It's a long document. You'll see on the left-hand side here, there's listing of sleeping rooms. There are things about attrition. Some of the important things that you should look at, though, are the extras. When we're speaking about meeting room and sleeping room nights, generally they'll come and say, okay, maybe we'll offer you one free room night if you pick up 50 room nights. We generally go with 35 rooms per one. So, you know, push back. And that's part of here as well. So we published recently, and it's online as well now, a document that really walks you through that process, helps you understand what you're reading, but you know what's in there is easy. You're able to read it. The harder part is what's not in there that you want in there, and you should feel free to add whatever makes you most comfortable with proceeding with a meeting. And then the most important part is making sure you understand every aspect of the financial risk. I will read these over and add up, you know, I'm basically a positive person, but I look at what is the absolute worst case scenario, which we've all been experiencing in this last year, canceling outright. What would that actually mean? So then you add up the expense of not meeting your room block, not meeting what was expected for food and beverage, or meeting rental. And then you say, okay, you know, it's worth $100,000. That's my worst case. And then if you're okay with that, then you move ahead. And then there can be so much legalese in there. Don't be shy. You know, I've been doing this a lot of years. I read legal documents a lot, and when I read language that I do not understand what it is, I'll write them back and say, can you explain what you mean by this? They often say, oh, that was from an old contract. We actually don't know what it means either. So don't be shy at all. And that's options for cost savings. I was speaking about getting maybe some free rooms based on your room night pickup. You could also ask for free internet, whole host of other items. And Brenda's online here as well, and maybe she has a list that she could post in the chat about some of the other things that we ask for. Okay, when should I send my contract to a PWA? We were speaking about that earlier. We would like to see all contracts over the amount of 10,000. And then if you move to the right, if the value is over 5,000 but less than 10,000, we don't need to approve it. We're happy to speak with you, look it over, and offer you input. But it would be great if you sent us a copy of it so we have it in our records. If it's less than 5,000, there might be some other insurance implications. We have some chapters, and I'm not promoting this, that have maybe possibly had axe throwing, skeet shooting, some higher risky outings, and we ask that you let us know so that we make sure that you're insured properly. And we can turn them around usually in under a week. Any questions? I know I'm opening the fire hose.
Scott, there was a
Thank
question
you.
in the chat about if the contract amount is under 10,000, but the member participants are essentially paying and the chapters the go-between for collecting the money and writing a check for the event. Do we still need to have contract review?
Nick, would you unmute and tell me a little more about what that situation is?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. I just think back to our annual summer golf event. We provide registration for it, and chapter members help facilitate it, but it's all self-funded. The chapter doesn't subsidize it, so it's really
Yes.
a reservation and slate to the activities that are involved in it.
Right. So that's a great illustration. So there can be still liability that we want to know about. If our name is being used in any way, a PWA blank blank blank, we hold some amount of liability. So we want to have a handle on what's happening, what the risks are, and whether you need any extra insurance. Golf outings are part of what we insure. That's not an extra rider, but it's helpful knowing somebody could trip and fall, and we want to know about that.
Yep.
Does that answer your question?
Yep, I kind of asked on behalf of anybody else who might be curious about that. We've certainly faced that question in the past, so
great.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, Scott, I have a comment. This is Doug Singer from Oregon chapter.
Hey, Doug.
One of the things, hey, how are you? Thanks for putting these sessions on. These are great. In negotiating contracts for conferences, one of the things we've run into is that providing the, whatever you want to call it, the AV services, right? Providing the electronics for the presentations and such. We've found those to be super expensive, and prices have been going up recently. And that in a lot of our contracts, the location doesn't want to have that price in the agreement if we're making, we're often making our agreements 2 years in advance, right? To secure that facility. And so in a lot of our contracts, it's been in the contract that they'll provide it and that they'll provide the price later.
Yep.
And that's been a huge issue because those prices are something that then they seem to like spike after the fact. So just as you're negotiating contracts, look for things like that, if the venue is saying, oh yeah, you have to go with our services for this, but there's not a price in the contract, and make sure you realize that could be, something you have to negotiate later.
That's an excellent point on two different levels. One is audio visual / internet prices are insane. We held an APWA board meeting, I believe it was in Seattle at PWX, and the price for having internet in our boardroom was something like $3,000. I said, we're not having it, and had everyone download the board meeting info ahead of time. I mean, as it ended up, people have hotspots, and it works, but they charge a lot. Likewise, audio visual is very challenging. There's a mix for some of you who might have smaller meetings. Your chapter might own projectors and you bring your own, but there are other places that say, great, if you want to bring your own, we're still charging you $500 because of labor and screens and all that. So that's part one. I would recommend you try to lock in on a rate, whatever those rates are in the year that you're signing. And that really goes for a lot of other stuff. That's part two. If you're signing 2 years out, 4 years out or more, we try to lock in on current rates. they'll usually say, no, we don't know, but we start there. Likewise with food and beverage, those prices go up every year. We try to lock in on those rates. And for meeting space rental, sleeping rooms, you can generally lock in on the rates of the year that you're signing, and should if you can. Thanks for raising that. So anyway, we look this over to make sure that the language in there is reasonable. During this last year, we've just seen some crazy stuff. And if you don't have those things I spoke about earlier like force majeure, impossibility, and cancellation language that's favorable to you, it's hard. Ashley, how much more time is left? I don't want to use up your time.
You're completely fine. You can probably have another 5 minutes if you need it.
Perfect. That's all I need. So we've spoken about this bullet. We want to make sure that all of the language in there is as favorable to us as possible. My mantra is, don't be shy. Speak up, ask about what you don't know. So we've during this last year have become much more organized, really out of necessity. And Diana is our lead on all of these kinds of event, meeting, conference contracts. She reads them over. I may read them over as well. Make sure that you have in there what you need. And then all other financial and insurance or oriented ones would go to Mary Knollmeyer. Okay, so let's speak quickly. I know that Mary Joyce Ivers and I have sent out number of correspondence about, okay, now what? And I've recently had calls about, okay, now we're in a new year. Can we start holding, large in-person meetings? And the answer is we're not in a place yet where that's going to work in most instances. Still, we would recommend that you look at all of these items. What's happening in your state. We have instances where there's at least 5 or 8 states in the United States that allow for large meetings. It doesn't mean it's right, even though it's allowed. And from a public health standpoint, you need to look at how many people will you have there, what your meeting site is like, can you have enough distance, what your positivity rates of COVID are in your area. Are people coming in from out of state or different parts? And then really, we've been working with a lot of chapters over the last year, helping them either have outdoor meetings if possible. So golf outings have worked well, outside rodeos have worked well, and technical walking tours as well. And then also the use of virtual. We're right now speaking with a company that has a really great option of virtual meeting platform, and we'll know more about that in a week. But we've spoken about the ability for our chapters, to use it with meetings of 100 or less. So when we know more, we will share that. Any questions about this? I know there are a lot of questions. You all have meetings. We're in a new year. I'd open it up right now.
Yeah, this is Tara from Washington State. Do you expect National will come out with some type of requirements for when we are mainly vaccinated and having in-person events again, such as are we going to require folks to show proof of vaccination? What happens if someone is not vaccinated and they still want to come? All those fun questions.
Yeah, that's a really great question, and we're speaking about that right now. You're reading in the news that the EEOC issued guidance stating that employers can require vaccinations as a means of employment. That would carry over to any of our meetings. Question is, will you be willing to escort anyone out when they show up and they've registered and they paid and they don't have proof? I don't know that anybody has that answer yet. From my perspective, it's been about education. Really speaking about the importance of when you're eligible and you are able to have the vaccine, assuming that you don't have underlying health issues or religious reasons why you won't have it, that you have it. I mean, it helps you and it helps others around you. So we are speaking about that. We're not at a point yet where we would say that we are making it a requirement, but definitely it will make people feel a lot more comfortable when we start meeting in person. Does that help at all? It's not a yes or no answer yet.
No, that's fine. It just means that you guys are talking about it just like we are. And
absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks. Other questions? Okay, so I've really spoken about we're here to help you in every way. In this last year, we started working and helping chapters with coming up with a strategy for how you work with canceling or postponement. It's obviously much more challenging in states that there is no prohibition, because the hotels or meeting sites will say, well, you're able to hold it. There are no restrictions. But there are public health arguments that we have been able to make. If it's in a state or local area that prohibits it, and say that you're having a conference in August and it's March, and the restrictions are still in place in March that would not really allow you to have it, you have a little more negotiating leverage when the restrictions are still in place. They'll argue though and say, look, it's only March, you're holding your meeting in August, what's your worry? From a legal standpoint, we've had a lot more luck when we've had to cancel our North American Snow Conference and PWX when there were still restrictions in place. Questions about that? We've really spoken about the importance of having strong language that's obviously more in your favor. And spoke about that, so that's no, and I spoke about that. Wow, I'm just moving right along. So I guess one other item, the last bullet, it is you all are probably aware we now have a COVID liability waiver that has anyone showing up at your meetings recognizing that I'm willing, I'll be around other people, and I recognize that there are risks right now, and so we recommend everybody sign that. So we spoke about each of these items here. These are all up on our website. And then this I showed briefly earlier. This is on our website as well. I would download this and read it and reread it and read it once more. It's really strong. I get really happy when we can sign this without any hotel or meeting space making any edits, because it's strong and it is in our favor. And then Why do we want you to share your info with us? Because keeping me out of prison. So that's my mantra. Anyway, that is the end of what I was speaking about. Diana's our lead on this, and I guess because of time, if you want to ask me questions in the chat, I will respond. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Scott. I'm going to hand it over to Abigail and Charlie to talk a little bit about outreach and social media and marketing efforts. So Abigail, if you would like to share your screen, we'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Can you see my screen? That's an obligatory ask. Okay. We're going to talk about email marketing and social media today and how to communicate with your members and your audience. I'm Abigail Grossman, and I'm the APWA Marketing Specialist. And Charlie?
And I'm Charlie Arena, APWA Public Affairs Manager out of our DC office.
Okay. I seem to be having the same problem Andrea was having. Tammy, are you able to move my slide by chance?
No, they're coming from your machine, so I would not have that capacity. But I can share your
I was
slide.
able to do it when I wasn't sharing my screen. That's weird. I don't know. I'm not able to move the slide. Oh, there it goes. Was that me? Okay. The importance of email and social media communication, and just communication in general. A few bullet points here. We have grow and maintain your chapter, strengthen relationships with your members and your followers, your audience, drive attendance for chapter events, anything you have going on that you need to get the word out about. Email and social media is great for that real-time current communication. Any like revenues, fundraising, conferences, anything like that. To deliver content and experiences and reach audiences outside your chapter. Okay, here's some of my favorite email best practices. So use images and videos everywhere you can. We get at least a 25% open rate when images are the first thing in your email, the first thing that the recipient sees. It's eye-catching, it's visual. Same goes for video. We see an even higher open rate with video. And you're able to also measure that engagement a little bit better when people click out to a video on your YouTube channel to watch. Another one is spend time writing a quality subject line. A lot of the time we get fixated on perfecting the copy of our email when really the subject line is what's going to get them to open it in the first place. So the goal of that email is for them to open it, and so that's where they'll see the subject line first. I recommend really focusing on that. And then also the right timing. It's kind of hard to know exactly when the time is right. We like to advise between Tuesday and Thursday. Monday, people are flooded with emails or probably really bombarded. They might set aside your email and think to come back to it, maybe forget. And then Friday, people are on weekend mode. So Tuesday and Thursday is kind of the general rule of thumb. And then Sunday, we used to, stay away from sending emails out on the weekend, but we sometimes like to experiment with Sunday because people tend to get on Sunday afternoon and catch up on their work email so they don't feel behind. And so Sunday is a good day, we think. So if you can, jot down this link, or I think you'll get this presentation afterwards, but it goes through all of the really great free email platforms to use, ratings and reviews, the summary, the pros and cons of each. For upgrading options, you can see a pricing breakdown, list and targeting capabilities, all kinds of stuff. So we really recommend this link if you're needing some ideas for email platforms. And here are some more of those, just visual for you. We have MailChimp, Benchmark, Constant Contact, SendPulse, Sendinblue. And then APWA uses Informs. That's like Inform and then with a Z at the end. That's not a free one. It's pretty robust, but it's a really great tool, and we really like it. So. Canva is also another great one for infographics. If you need to add words to your photo, Canva is a great free tool to be able to do that. If you're reporting on metrics or giving some kind of slideshow, Canva is a great visually appealing resource that's free, and it has so many great options. You can pick through stock photos, font, coloring, all that kind of stuff. So, and I am not by any means a graphic designer, so Canva's nice because it's an easy to use tool. It really walks you through all the steps. So I recommend this one. And then here's some stock photography resources. We have Unsplash, StockSnap, Pixabay, Pexels, Google. These are really great if you just need to pull a general image. Like if you're tweeting something out and you want to add a construction image with it, go out to any of these stock photography free resources and you'll be able to pull any of those photos. Like on social media, it is really good to have a photo with your caption. So we recommend these resources. And then other great resources, Jared might have talked about this on Tuesday, but Really Good Emails is our favorite. It's a free website. You can go out and type in any type of email that you need inspiration on. If you're like, okay, I want to market this book or this publication we have coming out, or this really great first responder hoodie. I'm just using some of my examples, but Really Good Emails shows you some great ways to do it, and how to design templates, how to incorporate photos, how to incorporate good messaging. It's a great tool if you need some email inspiration. HubSpot is another one. HubSpot is just a great marketing tool in general. It has all the information. Infogram for good infographics and charts and maps, and then Easel. Okay, now on to social media. Any questions about anything I just went over with email? I can't see the chat right now, but I will look at the end.
You're doing okay.
Okay, cool. So 5 of the big social media platforms here, we have Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. So just a general overview. Twitter is more real-time conversation, kind of that back and forth. You can see it in an instant. It's more about connecting with ideas and concepts, whereas Facebook is more networking with people you know. You're able to read someone's long caption with no character limit. So Facebook is a good one for more of those personal connections. We have YouTube for video, Instagram for photos, and LinkedIn. LinkedIn's the fastest growing social media platform right now, and it's more of a professional tool. My dad uses it like it's Facebook, so it's you can be personal on LinkedIn too, but it's more for like professional networking, that type of thing.
All right, thanks, Abigail, for taking all that on. That was a great little overview. And just for everyone's awareness on here, I am the I run our Twitter account out of the DC office, APWA Gov Affairs. So when Andrea referenced that earlier, if you already took the time to go click on over to our feed, our account, and scroll through, those came from these fingers, right from this laptop. So go take a look at that. It has all of our information, what's going on in our government affairs department, what's going on legislatively and with regard to regulations on Capitol Hill. So with that, I'll dive into just some advice and ideas for social media. So the first thing you always want to consider is who is your audience. And when you're using social media, specifically Twitter, like Abigail just mentioned, you're putting out concepts, you're talking about ideas, you're talking about current events, news, things that are going on. So that really is going to hit everyone. So my short answer is everyone. And then long answer is you're still reaching out to, even if you're going to target specific demographics or specific groups, that message that you put out there is still going to be visible for everyone to see. Even if you have a private account, you or your agency, which I would not recommend for public works departments, as you want everyone in the community to have easy, ready access right to your feed to see everything that you're posting, what's going on. So you really need to make sure that your account is open and available and everyone will be able to see what you're posting. Even if it doesn't necessarily impact them, it's great for them to see that, oh, okay, we're gonna have low water pressure. Later on in the day today, I'm not going to be home, but that's good to know. So I can text my son and let him know that, oh, if he tries to get something out of the tap, this might be going on. Abigail just mentioned that LinkedIn is the fastest growing social media platform. And this is specifically for Facebook, but we see this across social media platforms that older users, those in the 65 plus demographic, are the fastest growing on Facebook and really across platforms. So these are going to be people who they might not be working anymore. So they're going to be sitting at home and they might be more cognizant of what's going on in their community, public works wise, and then checking their social media to let you know if there's a pothole that hasn't been filled, or they saw public works guys out, cleaning the streets or trimming trees. So you really want to make sure that the messages that you're sending out there, they're accessible to everyone and that they're understandable to everyone. Next slide, Abigail. Thank you. So like I just said, it's often the first place that members of the public, media, elected officials, really anyone are going to check, for these updates and things. Of course, you want to keep your website and your normal news channels updated and with containing that information. But social media is great, especially among younger people. We're just going to go on and check. Like I know if there's a helicopter flying above me in DC, I'm going to go on Helicopters of DC, the Twitter account. And see what that's for, what's going on, and normally it's always right there and readily available. And especially right now with the quarantine measures, I know most of those have passed, but some have come back into effect, across the country. But with COVID-19, people are spending 47% more time on social media, and that is, I don't know about you guys, but if I'm spending half of the time that I was already spending on social media more on it, that's a lot of time. So you got to make sure that you have a presence on social media and you are getting your messages out there. And what I've said earlier about even if someone, the news that you're putting out doesn't necessarily directly impact them, it will still help them trust your agency. So it enables you to build public trust in your agency, raise its profile, and demonstrates influence by broadcasting your efforts, both individually and then with local organizations. So if you're working, if you're collaborating with someone on a local project, it's great to put that out there as well. All of that information is good and useful. Thank you. So just some quick tips and tricks. First, we're going to go over using hashtags. If you all are familiar with the, I know it's some insurance company, I can't remember now off the top of my head, but it's the, getting older people used to technology. So it's a guy up on stage and they go, what are hashtags? Is that what I click to submit something? So we'll go over that real quickly. We'll go over how you provide that quality content that I talked about. And then something that's a little bit unique, and I see this a lot in people who are hesitant to jump into social media, and that's responding to comments, especially the troublesome commenter. So what is a hashtag?
Okay. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Abigail. So I was actually just gonna say this was, she came up with that, and that was fantastic. So if you want to take that, go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to say that hashtags help create real-time conversation and allow others who are interested in the topic to find the content and share it quickly and easily. So a lot of the times people will ask me, what what kind of hashtag can we create, or what should our hashtag be, or what should I hashtag? And really, it can be anything. If you look at your caption and you think, what's the point of this message that I'm trying to convey? Water. Throw a hashtag in front of water. Anybody who's interested in water or needing to learn more about water can just go on and search that in LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and pull up all of that conversation that's being had about water. So another way is you can develop your hashtag. Like over the years, APWA has developed our PWX hashtag. So each year people know it's PWX and then the year. So PWX 2021. And sometimes that takes some time for people to get used to. But if you're just starting out on social media, hashtag public works, hashtag water resources, hashtag, if you're curious about PWX at home, hashtag, search that in the search bar and you'll have all of that information that will come up for you. Anything else on that, Charlie, that I missed?
I would just say that using a hashtag in a tweet, one that you send out, it makes it super easy for us, at APW, whether it's Abigail on the Kansas City accounts or me from the DC account, it makes it super easy for us to find, what we're looking for. So if you tweet an issue, or us or anyone, whoever you want to see the hashtag. So if you're tweeting at your local public works agency, and you want them to see that there is, like I said earlier, an unfilled pothole right on your street, you can hashtag public works, and that public works agency, they will most likely be searching for the hashtag public works, and they'll find that and be able to go in and fix the pothole, fix the pipes, whatever it is. So
yeah, that's a good point. It's kind of like in the muck of everything going on social media, there's so much content out there. So hashtags are really good to just help you help your post be seen.
Real quick, Abigail, just because I saw a question pop in here. So how do hashtags help a person search? So what it does is it essentially takes what Abigail just said, where everything's a muck on social media. You jump on and everything's hitting you all at once. You're able to, so she has the APW hashtag thing up right now. So you just go up to your search bar, you type in hashtag PWX 2021, and every tweet that has PWX 2021 is going to appear. So you'll be able to scroll through all of them and then pick and choose which ones you want to interact with, or if you were looking for one in particular and you found it, great. Same thing for Show for Snow, same thing for National Public Works Week, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, exactly. And here are some of our main APWA hashtags. You can see right here, and to the right we have some examples of how they're used. So during National Public Works Week, we see a flood of tweets during that week, that third week of May. And so make sure to put a National Public Works Week hashtag on your post so we can see it and share it, and it can be part of the National Public Works Week conversation.
And like Abigail, she actually used it earlier, which was a perfect example. But so we have hashtag water in that one APW Government Affairs tweet right up there. And that helps us just insert ourselves into those industry conversations. When people are having a conversation about water on social media, or they want to look for conversations about water, they'll type it in and they will find our tweet. So it's really great for promoting the conversation that you want to have.
Mm-hmm.
So quality content, and this is, really when you're getting into the nuts and bolts of social media, and specifically for Twitter from the DC office, it's how can I, in 280 characters, convince someone to engage with what I'm saying? Whether that's they're taking the story to heart themselves and then acting on in real life, or they're engaging with it on social media, whether that's through a like, a retweet, a favorite, a comment, whatever that interaction is. So like Abigail mentioned earlier, pictures and videos are the #1 thing you want to use to create that engagement. So 49% of people watch more than 5 videos a day, which is absolutely mind-blowing. I remember when I first saw that, and then I sat there and thought about it. I'm like, I probably watched five videos right before I got on this call. And then it's going even a step further as we continue to, exist in this virtual environment and move forward with technology permeating, every community. So online videos are going to make up more than 82% of all consumer internet traffic in 2022. So it's more important than ever to really get yourself yourself used to using video and creating those conversations with video. But other things that are great to include in tweets that provide that quality content are upcoming events, tools and resources, like we've talked about, engaging in current relevant discussions, sharing relevant news, and highlighting chapter activities. So obviously those could be a great deal of many things, but there's one I want to focus on, and that's engaging in current relevant discussions. So this example I have over on the side here is from a solid waste management professional, and he's just sent these 3 tweet outs just to let people know how he was feeling, what was going on in the profession right now due to COVID-19, due to the pickups that they have to make right now, when in the beginning we weren't totally sure if it was safe. And I'm not sure if you can see, but he got a great deal of many likes and retweets on this, and that's because it was personal. So his tweet showed empathy, and he projected this mindset, of public works, we are the first responders. It includes that, and it shows people that even when things are unsafe for them and most people are locked inside their homes, they're still out there. Solid waste guys and all public works professionals are still out there providing these essential services, that all of our communities need to keep on running. It shows why that public works is the backbone of every community. So that's just a great example of, engaging in a current relevant discussion and providing a great, an inside perspective on what's going on, and it alerts, the rest of the world. So is 450,000 people to what he actually deals with day to day as a solid waste professional.
Mm-hmm. And then this is always an example I like to use. Barry Sheff is the Water Resources Technical Committee Chair. He posted this on LinkedIn, I think it was like a year ago, but he used a lot of hashtags, and he tagged each person who he was talking about in his post. And then this caused all of the engagement that you can see below, comments and likes and shares and stuff like that. So by tagging people, organizations, companies in your post, they will hopefully see that and engage with that.
Yep. On that note, we've made an effort with the new Congress, the freshman Congress members, and our new public policy priorities to tag elected officials, and let them know what's going on, how our water priorities agree with them, or how they can use them in their when they're drafting legislation and such. And they will engage with it. Obviously it's not them directly, it's their staffers who will see it, but they will take that message and bring it to the elected officials. So it's a great way, as our general discussion is about advocacy, it's another great tool for your advocacy outreach.
Mm-hmm.
So the trouble that everyone has when they come to social media, it's what happens when someone disagrees with you, or they don't like what you say, or they don't like how you filled the pothole right outside their street, or how long it took you to do it. So the first thing that I always recommend to do is just recognize what type of comment it is. It sounds straightforward and simple, but that's really what you have to do. You say, is this a complaint? Is it a grievance? Is it a question that they just have generally? Do they want an update on something? Really, what is it? Because that tells you how you have to answer it. But how you answer it, it must be factually accurate, informative, on brand, kind, and most of all, helpful. And I would say the 2 most important things of that, of course, helpful, but also on brand. You want to be following, your agency's goals and strategic plan, or whatever version of that you have, whether it's a mission statement, a vision statement, just your general marketing outreach. You want to follow through on that. You want to be the brand that you promote in all your traditional media and all your traditional interactions. You want to be that on social media as well. You never want to ignore or delete a comment. So even though it may seem like a negative situation, if someone has a grievance or a complaint about something, and whether it's unfounded or very well founded, it's still a positive opportunity to build trust with the public and be helpful. So if you send a thoughtful response that addresses the individual's concerns and provides facts and data answering their question or direct them to available resources, that reduces the chance that the comment is going to grow to a larger issue. And that's something that you certainly don't want. As we see, many times, I can give you an exact example. It happens a lot with Wendy's in a positive way, but companies and organizations will go viral depending on their interactions and engagement on social media. So if you're ignoring a comment that someone has, whether it's a complaint, they're going to keep amplifying that complaint. Just because you're ignoring it or you delete it does not mean it's going to go away. They're going to probably get angrier, and more people are going to join on their side. And if you don't respond to it, the people who see the original comment, they're not going to know what your position on it is. They're not going to know if you were trying to help or if it's an unfounded complaint from the get-go. And even if you're just saying something like, so I have Caterpillar here on the side. They have a great example of someone coming to them with a complaint, and they say, hey, we hear you, we understand you. Can we take this offline for a further discussion? That's a great way to handle it if you're not sure right there in the moment of what the best response would be, or if you don't think you can have a great response, a helpful response of 280 characters, take it offline. That's still, you're taking, it's accountability right there. It's for every other viewer to see that you care. You care about this comment and you care about all the other people who engage with you on social media.
Yeah, that's a good point, Charlie. It really allows you to kind of flip it and make it into a positive. Those people are following you regardless, and so you want them to trust you, even if they have negative things to say. You can turn that around and make it into a better situation. Okay, so that is all from us. If we're good on time, we can take some questions. If we're running a little bit over, we can answer them at a later date. Ashley, you can just let me know.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and sorry to cut you guys off. If you've got questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box. Charlie and Abigail can stick around and answer those in there, or you can catch up with them offline. But I'm going to go ahead and share my presentation here, and I will run through this as quick as we can. So hopefully, give me the nod that you're seeing the presentation here, at least the slide that says chapter outreach. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to run through this fairly quickly here, guys. Give me 1 second. All right, so if you don't know what a chapter website is, or if you have one, there are a couple different versions of chapter websites that are out there. You've got the current website, and here's an example of what that looks like. And then we've got a brand new website template that just launched not too long ago, and it looks a little something like this. We've got about 4 chapters currently using our brand new template, and it's kind of exciting to have that. And we've got about 13 more in the queue to transition over. But I'll talk about that a little bit more later on. I'm going to try to get through some of these other things. But for those of you that may not know, did you know that your chapter website could do all sorts of things? They can do event registration. You can do job listings on it. You can set your securities for members and non-members. You can showcase YouTube videos. You can do a direct link to the national database for your leadership team, your past presidents, your officers, all of that. And you can also do chapter elections and pollings. If you didn't know that, please get in contact with me. I'm more than happy to show your chapter website administrator how that's used, or anybody on your leadership team. But there's some really cool things that our websites have the capability of doing, and sometimes it's just not knowing how to use them or how to set those up, and we're happy to help. You kind of saw this slide if you were in the presentation on day 2. Jared went over chapter websites and how those can be used for your communication tools. These website brand, the biggest thing about your website is branding and understanding the branding for your chapter, and not just for chapter, but also kind of following along the branding guidelines for national as well. The nice part about the templates is we set you up initially with our branding guidelines, but then from there you can brand it to be more specific to your chapter if you would like that to be. The other things to keep an eye out for is the headlines, your photos, the copy that you're using, and the relevancy, and also just making sure that your information is up to date and is current. And contact information is listed there too. So if folks want to reach out to you, they have a way of getting a hold of you, or at least know someone that they can email or make a phone call to. I'm going to kind of roll through this branding piece here real quick, so I apologize for that, but these slides will be attached later on, so if you want to look at that later, you can. But the biggest part about branding is just understanding what that means for you and for your chapter. The biggest thing is it's an intention, it's consistency, and it's repetition. So the same color for your fonts, the same type of images, the same type of theme across your pages, the same type of font text. All of those lead to your branding, and following those guidelines are super helpful in order to make for a clean, clear, concise, and easy readable website. So when you're looking at branding, if you create a style guide, it can be a very simplistic that just says our logos will be like this, our fonts will be with this type of font, our color will be this way, and our sizing of our font will be a certain size. And setting that out against whoever is going to be adding content to your webpage is super helpful. The other biggest thing that you should be very mindful of is just your website headers. Make sure those have a large impact. They're instantly recognizable, and that kind of follows the same theme of everything that your chapter is doing. The biggest thing there is your graphics. So when you talk about your homepage, graphics are huge, especially on the brand new template. The new template follows the same structure as the national website. So those big banners across the top are available to you, and making sure those are very clean and concise and easily readable is something that you'll want to pay attention to as you start building out for that one. But also think about your homepage as a billboard. So campaigns can go over multiple weeks on your homepage, such as award winners, you're calling for speakers, any educational events or conferences that you've got coming up, any voting. Those things are more on a billboard type of environment. So you would want those on your homepage. And more of your details and your information that you really want them to dig into goes into your internal pages of your website. So talking about homepage graphics, the biggest thing here is just that they're very clear. So if you're using the old template, using very crisp, clean graphics that say what you need them to say, that are very similar to this. For those who are going to be on the brand new template, using clean graphics like this makes for a very nice look on those web pages and tells them what they need. You don't need as many people in the images if you don't want them to. They can be very basic backgrounds with bright, bold text in there. I'm not going to talk about adding a video to your website, but the steps will be here. If you've got questions on how to add a video to your website, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to focus a little bit more of our time in this training on event features. So if you didn't know, you have the capability on the chapter websites to use the event registration tool, and it's free for you to use minus the credit card charges that are the transaction fees that are out there. So that is a positive when you look at using your website templates to use the event registration tool. I will tell you this event tool is not meant for your big, drastic, huge events, something similar to PWX or Snow Conference. They're more designed for your simple, small events. They can do some complex events, but not the extreme version of a complex event. And so it's really nice to be able to have that tool available to you and to your chapter to use. But if you didn't know, there's lots of things you can do, such as early bird registration, member and non-member registration pricing. There's 2-tiered registration. There's calendar email invites and your confirmations. You can do coupon codes for complimentary registration or discounts. For Canadian chapters, we have the capability for you to do your tax collections and calculations on your websites now. All of your events that go on your chapter websites do get listed out on the National Chapter Events calendar page. And then what's brand new out there, not brand new, there used to be a risk and liability waiver out there for the last few years, but we've added recently a COVID-19 pandemic waiver. So folks have to sign that prior to moving on in the registration process, which covers you and covers your helps kind of cover your insurance in case something were to happen. They will have at least agreed to it through that platform and have read it at some point. So this is the National Chapter Event Calendar. So any event that's listed on your chapter website automatically gets posted out to the event calendar, and it's accessible through the APWA website. And this is just really pointing out that member, non-member pricing in here in your early bird and regular rates. So if you didn't know that that was there for you, these are the features that are available through the chapter website, along with the confirmation email. So you can add a coupon, which is what the image is at the top here. And then when they receive the confirmation email, when they register for the event, there is the download icon that actually adds it to their calendar. And it adds it to their calendar based on the time zone that they're in. So it's kind of neat that we have that functionality already built into the chapter email tool. This here is looking at you can send emails through the chapter website. So for those folks who have registered for an event and you want to do a specific outreach effort to them, you can go into the registration manager, click email, and it's going to pull up everybody that's registered for that event, and you can generate an email right there to those registrants. You can even break it down to those maybe who haven't paid their fees yet at that point in time. They wanted to pay by check or pay later. You can filter that list down. It'll automatically send a message out to them through this tool. For Canadian chapters that are on here, you have the capability to set up your taxes on your websites now. This feature was rolled out, I think, about a year ago. There is an icon in the event setup area that says set up event tax, and it gives you the capability to actually put in your rates for the taxes and the taxes that you charge in your province. Within the event itself, you actually can set the tax rate on each option that's created. So some options will have different tax rates. versus others, depending on if it's a purchase of a product or purchase of an educational event. So you can set those rates based on each of the options within your own event. The risk and liability waiver, this is just a real quick screenshot, but before they can proceed with the registration, they have to say that they agree. If they click no, it will not allow them to proceed with their event registration. This is only in the online tool that's out there. So talking real quick about the new website template and what that means for you. The new look is very much more of a modern look. It's mobile responsive. There is now a monthly calendar for your event listing. It gives the chapter contact information right on the homepage. There's an About Us section for the chapters that's already built into your homepage. You have website analytics that'll be set up, and then there's a whole chapter setting that has a bunch of different features in it that gives you as a chapter more capability to do stuff on your website than what you previously were with the older template. For those chapters maybe who don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to the new template or what the transition period is, there is a way to go about getting you on the list to transition over. You have to submit a website conversion form, and I will make sure that that resource is attached in our leadership training webpage that we've got. The biggest thing is focusing on updating all of your images so they fit the new website template in general. The homepage has a completely different image size, and so that is a huge focus as you look forward to transitioning over to the new website template. And then the biggest thing is schedule a training with staff. If you're not able to attend any of our trainings that we have scheduled out that go over CT5, we are more than happy to do one-on-one trainings with you because there are a few things that are a little bit different on this new template. And the biggest thing there is don't be afraid to reach out to APWA staff. Tomorrow, we do have a CT5 training that is going over the new template with all of the folks who have currently transitioned or will be transitioning in the next few months. And if your chapter is interested in joining that training, please reach out to me personally. I can send you the meeting invite for that, and we can get you going on looking at all the new features that are with CT5. If you've got any questions, I know this is really quick and I apologize for kind of whipping through this section here real fast. If you've got questions, please feel free to reach out to myself or to Zach Tarbill. We are more than happy to answer any questions when it comes to the chapter websites. And then wrap up, to finish us off here, just kind of a wrap up. Hopefully you've enjoyed the last 4 sessions that we've had here for chapter leadership training. All of the resources and presentations that you've seen over these 4 sessions is available out there on the apwa.net/CLT website. And Tammy will be sending a follow-up email to everybody to let you know that that's where these resources are available. There's also a survey that we would appreciate your feedback on, asking how these 4 days have gone and what you thought about the format as we look to build out the program in the future.